Unit 3, Introduction to Risk Management. Chapter 11, Risk Management. Let's start by defining risk. Risk is the effect of uncertainty in objectives. It is a combination of the probability of occurrence of harm and the severity of that harm. Risk is not the harm itself. It is merely a possibility that harm will occur. What causes harm is hazard. For example, the COVID-19 virus. It is the hazard. The probability that a certain person may be infected is the risk. The concept of risk does not always relate to harm. Risk can likewise create opportunities. For example, investing in stocks. The concept of risk must be distinguished from uncertainty or genuine uncertainty. Risk can be measured. You may be able to tell possible outcomes and the chances that each outcome will occur. All that is unknown is the actual outcome. Whereas genuine uncertainty means that you do not know all the possible outcomes and or the chances of each outcome occurring. Next is the impact of risk on stakeholders. On shareholders, when the company's risk profile changes, the shareholders may sell their shares, resulting to a lower share price. On creditors, they are concerned on whether the company can fulfill its obligations and limit the risk of default. Otherwise, they can deny credit, charge higher interest, file actions in court that could lead the company into liquidations, or ask for collateral. On employees, they are concerned about the threats to their job, salary, promotion, benefits, satisfaction, and the job itself. So if the business fails, the employees may lose their jobs. On customers and suppliers, suppliers are concerned about the risk of making unprofitable sales. Customers are concerned on getting the value from the goods or the services that they expect. On the public, in general, the community is concerned with the risks that the company does not act as a good corporate citizen. Otherwise, pressure groups tactics can include publicity, direct action, sabotage, or pressure on the government. We've already mentioned risk management as we discussed the SEC Code of Corporate Governance. And as I've told you, ngayong final term tayo magkakaroon ng mas detailed na discussion. So there could be no effective corporate governance if the organizations fail to manage risks. In addition to compliance with the legal requirements, the top management should consider adequate knowledge of risk management. So what is risk management? It is a process of measuring or assessing risk and developing strategies to manage it. It is a systematic approach in identifying, analyzing, and controlling areas or events with the potential for causing unwanted change. It is the act or practice of controlling risk. And as defined by the International Organization of Standardization, or the ISO, it is the identification, assessment, and prioritization of risks, followed by coordinated and economical application of resources to minimize, monitor, and control the probability and or impact of unfortunate events and to maximize the realization of opportunities. So the goal is not always to totally eliminate risks, but to reduce them to an acceptable level. The basic principles of risk management as identified by the ISO are as follows. That risk management should create value, address uncertainty and assumptions, be an integral part of the organizational processes and decision-making, be dynamic, iterative, transparent, tailorable, and responsive to change, create capability of continual improvement and enhancement, considering the best available information and human factors, be systematic, structured, or continually, periodically reassessed. The steps in the process of risk management according to the standard ISO 31000, which is entitled Principles and Guidelines on the Implementation of Risk Management, includes three parts. First is the establishing of the context. Second is the identification of potential risks. And third, the assessment of such risks. So the first step is establishing the context. So it includes identification of risk in a selected domain of interest, planning the remainder of the process, mapping out the social scope of risk management, identity and objectives of stakeholders, basis upon which the risk will be evaluated, including the constraints, defining a framework for the activity and an agenda for identification, developing an analysis of risk involving the process, mitigation or solution of risk using available technological, human, and organizational resources. The second step, upon establishing the context, is the identification of the potential risks. This could be done by analyzing the source of the problem or by analyzing the problem itself. The common risk identification methods are objective-based, scenario-based, taxonomy-based, common risk checking, and risk charting. Lastly, risk assessment. It includes the assessment of the potential severity of risks and the probability of their occurrence. It includes risk analysis and risk evaluation. In practice, the risk must be balanced. Proper handling of risk must be observed, considering that there are risks with higher probability of occurrence but lower loss, and there are also risks with high loss but lower probability of occurrence. The elements of risk management are: first, identification, characterization, and assessment of threats. Second, assessment of the vulnerability of critical assets to specific threats. Third, determination of the risk. Fourth, identification of ways to reduce those risks. And fifth, prioritization of risk reduction measures based on strategy. There are different types of risk. Some are associated with investments and financial institutions, while others are associated with manufacturing, trading, and service concerns. Madami lang sila pero medyo madali naman matandaan kasi nasa term na rin mismo yung kung anong klaseng risk ba siya. Some of the risks associated with investments are business risk. It is the uncertainty about the rate of return caused by the nature of the business. Common causes are uncertainty about the firm's sales and operating expenses. Default risk, it is related to the probability that some or all of the initial investment will not be returned. Closely related to the financial condition of the company issuing the security and the security's rank in claims on assets in the event of default or bankruptcy. Financial risk, it is determined by the firm's capital structure or sources of financing. Interest rate risk, it gives rise to uncertainty about the cost of the debt. Liquidity risk, it is the inability to meet short-term obligations. It is associated with the uncertainty created by the inability to sell the investment quickly for cash. Management risk, it is a risk associated with ineffective, destructive, or underperforming management. Purchasing power risk, it is a risk that unexpected changes in consumer prices will penalize an investor's real return from holding an investment. Second, the risk associated with manufacturing, trading, and service concerns. Market risk. It is a risk of gain or loss due to movement in the market value of an asset, stock, bond, loan, foreign exchange or commodity, or a derivative contract linked to these assets. Under market risks are product risk, the possibility that the system or software might fail to satisfy or fulfill some reasonable expectation of the customer, the user, or the stakeholder. It includes complexity, obsolescence, research and development, packaging, and delivery of warranties. Competitor or competitive risk. It's a risk associated with the fact that there are often competing companies on the market, each of which seeks to obtain the highest position in consumer ratings on it in order to maximum benefits to gain maximum benefits for themselves. So under that risk are pricing strategy, market share, and market strategy. Operations or operational risk. It is a prospect of loss resulting from inadequate or failed procedures, systems, or policies, under which are process stoppage, health and safety, after-sales service failure, environmental, technological obsolescence, integrity, management fraud, employee fraud, and illegal acts. Third, financial risk. It has some direct financial impact on the company. Interest rates, volatility, foreign currency, liquidity, derivative, and viability. Fourth, business risk. It includes regulatory change, reputation, political, regulatory, and legal, shareholder relations, credit rating, capital availability, and business interruptions. Then the third division is the risk associated with financial institutions. So it includes financial and non-financial risks. Other types of risk are credit risk. It occurs when a counterparty is unable or unwilling to fulfill its contractual obligation. Currency risk is the possibility of gain or loss due to future changes in exchange rates. Political risk is the risk that political action will affect the position and value of an organization. Technological risk is the failure of system due to tampering of data access to critical information, non-availability of data, and lack of controls. Internet risk is the numerous security dangers brought by internet connectivity. Denial of service attack is characterized by an attempt by attackers to prevent legitimate users of service from using that service. Probity risk is a risk of unethical behavior by one or more participants in a particular process. The categories of potential risk treatments are risk avoidance. It includes non-performing of an activity that could carry the risk. Second, risk reduction or optimization. It involves reducing the severity of the loss or the likelihood of the loss from occurring. Third is risk sharing. It is sharing with another party the burden of loss or the benefit of gain from a risk and the measures to reduce a risk. Risk retention, it is accepting the loss or benefit of gain from a risk when it occurs. The areas of risk management are enterprise risk management activities as applied to project management, risk management for mega projects, risk management for information technology, and risk management techniques in petroleum and natural gas. Next, we have the SEC requirement relative to enterprise risk management of publicly listed corporations. So you can recall that it has been mentioned in SEC Code of Corporate Governance Recommendations 2.11 and 3.4 and in their corresponding explanations that the board should oversee that a sound enterprise risk management framework is in place to effectively identify, monitor, assess, and manage the key business risks. That the board is responsible for defining the company's level of risk tolerance. Further, the risk management framework is mentioned in SEC Code of Corporate Governance, Principle number 12. That the company should have a strong and effective internal control system, an enterprise risk management framework to ensure integrity, transparency, and proper governance. Lastly, the steps in the risk management process. First, set up a separate risk management committee chaired by a board member. So that is to demonstrate the firm's commitment to adopt an integrated company-wide risk management system. Second, ensure that a formal comprehensive risk management system is in place. That is to provide a clear vision of the board's desire for an effective company-wide risk management. Third, assess whether the formal system possesses the necessary elements. The key elements are goals and objectives, risk language identification, organization structure, which should include formal charters, levels of authorization, reporting lines, and job description. Risk management process documentation. Then the fourth step is evaluate the effectiveness of the various steps in the assessment of the comprehensive risk faced by the business firm. Fifth, assess if the management has developed and implemented the suitable risk management strategies and evaluate their effectiveness. Strategies may include avoidance, reduction, transfer, exploitation, and retention of risks. Sixth, evaluate if the management has designed and implemented risk management capabilities. Seventh, assess the management's effort to monitor overall company risk management performance and to improve continuously the firm's capabilities. So it must be monitored on a continuing basis. Eighth, see to it that best practices as well as mistakes are shared by all. So it includes regular communication of results and feedback to all concerned and open communication channels. Ninth, assess regularly the level of sophistication of the firm's risk management system. And 10th, hire experts when needed. So that's the first part of Unit 3, Introduction to Risk Management. I hope that by now you've already familiarized yourselves with the principles of risk management and some other relevant risk terminologies. If you have any questions or clarifications, just always feel free to send me a message. Thank you.